Hello everyone and welcome to the Pick a Crystal / pile reading. I am so excited to be doing this reading for you today, and I've laid out 3 different crystals here, both with a card that I set as the intention so that the people that pick that crystal would also end up picking that card. And I am so excited to be doing this for you today. I'm going to show you guys your options, and then in the video description it'll show you the timestamps so you can skip to your reading and receiving your reading. And all my readings are by donation, so if you want to book a personal reading, I try to make it as accessible as possible so that I can still continue to do these readings but also keep my small business up to continue to make them accessible. And if you feel called to, you can also support me by donating towards this reading that you're receiving today. Everything is through the link in my bio. You can check out my website. It shows all the information on where to donate. If you just go to the link in my bio and scroll to the bottom, or actually it might be near the top now, but it'll show you where to donate. And I really appreciate it. It helps me to continue to making spirituality as accessible as possible, which is one of my biggest beliefs, and helps me to continue helping in any sort of way. So I hope this brings any clarity to you. You can always set an intention before the reading about what you're looking for guidance on, but overall these are going to touch upon different areas of life. And yeah, we're going to jump right into it. I'll show you guys your options and we'll get into it. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to pick a pile, one with the crystal with the cards that are under it. So you're going to pick from one of these 3 piles. And what I want you to do is to pick the pile and pick the crystal that you were immediately drawn to. If your thinking part of your brain came in and started trying to convince you or think too much about where you want to go, just go where your gut feeling tells you to go. What was your first instinct? What do you feel like you're energetically drawn to? What really is calling to you? Once again, try not to think too much about it. I always say if you're trying to learn a little bit about getting in touch with your intuition, always go with what you have no emotional ties to, which means, for example, if you were immediately tied to one of these crystals and then something came in and started, convincing you to be like scared and actually you should be going to the other one and thinking too much, that is an emotional connection. Go with where you felt very clearly drawn to and trust that instinct. So this is the time to look at the timestamps in the description and skip to your reading so you can receive it. And so the first one we're going to dive into was the first card that was on the left, and it actually was a rose quartz. So I'm going to try and get this to focus. This is a very beautiful piece. This is probably one of my favorite pieces of rose quartz that I have. A little bit about me: I have an extensive crystal collection. I've just been collecting since I was a kid. And I was always drawn to rose quartz as a kid. So we're going to talk a little bit about rose quartz and what I think it means pertaining to your reading. So I also will say with each reading there is a, it's always unique depending on what it pertains to in the energy. So for example, in this case, rose quartz is always going to be named rose quartz and represent something around love, but how it's interpreted will be so different depending on the reading. So in this case, for example, let's say for someone else, rose quartz could be about falling in love with their job, or, whereas for someone else, the rose quartz might represent falling in love or, reconnecting with an old friend who they had a really deep and loving connection to, right? So 2 different ways of interpreting it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on what it means for the people that are receiving this reading. So yes, rose quartz does always represent something around love. The energy I'm picking up here is almost like maybe, you've been feeling like you're missing out a little bit, or like you've been craving a bit more like love in your life, meaning like whether you're kind of noticing like friendships maybe shifted or a bit different. Maybe you're just craving something different and you've just kind of felt like maybe the things that you used to love, maybe you don't have that drive anymore. To me, it feels like the energy here is evolution. So I think right now maybe you're feeling a bit, you could feel this like subtle or even more intensely discouragement maybe about, like why are these things not clicking anymore, or why is this not making me happy anymore? And, there's kind of like that release that needs to happen before you can like make space for something that you do truly love in this moment. So I really feel like the key word here is like evolving. You are evolving, you are changing, and you're holding on to these old parts of yourself and asking, why is it that, this isn't clicking, or why do I not feel that connection anymore, or why, that can pertain to anything from your routines, your spiritual practices, friends. It can even pertain to, your artistic practices. Like, what do you like to do? What do you like to get creative with? And maybe there's just this feeling of almost like, why, you're maybe asking yourself, like, why can't I connect to this? And it can feel discouraging because this part of you that's actually evolved is basically trying to say, like, it's because you're just not at that level of consciousness anymore. You're not at that level of, like, energy. So you're actually ready to welcome in new, whether that be practices, routines, friendships, creative ideas, but you're stuck on why, or asking yourself why this isn't clicking anymore, when that's feeling discouraging to you. And that's a valid feeling when you're going through any sort of change. But to me, it's basically saying that I think you should really focus on how to view this as an evolution, or like a transformation of a sorts, and like this up leveling, like really honoring your authentic self and where you're at now, versus trying to control yourself to be an old version of yourself that you've outgrown. And I think sometimes it can be difficult. Change can always be difficult, because what our brain likes to do is say, this is something I know and understand. Why can't I force myself to, like, still have the same connection to it, right? But you are meant to evolve. You're meant to take on new and exciting things in life. If everything was stagnant, you would be bored, or you would be kind of disheartened. There would be like almost like what's it called? The Good Place refers to as a happiness zombie, meaning like when everything's level, there's no room for growth and improvement. So it feels like there's like this evolving that's meant to happen here, but you have to like love this new version of yourself, or treat it with the same level of care and like this new evolved you with so much love, rather than focusing on an old version of yourself that did click with these things, because that level of you and that level of consciousness, that level of where you were at did mesh with it at the time, but now you're at where you're at now. So instead of being hard on yourself and telling yourself like why, trying to control everything, try to offer your evolved self some love. Be kind. Notice where your boundaries are with, your practices, what you're doing, people. And I guarantee if you view things from this way, you'll start noticing where you're setting boundaries and closing things up and not giving energy to it anymore. And when you have that energy that you're preserving, it will actually open up so that the evolved you, this new you, will be able to attract what it is that you're craving more of, like a new opportunity. And then it's like a new relationship. It just kind of clicks. You're like, that's why it didn't work out, because this needed to come. It's like, think about, I always tell people like a kind of example of this is like, think about your second last relationship. When it ended, could you picture the next person that was going to come along and like how great that was going to be? Probably not, because that was all you understood was that relationship at the time. But once you met that person that came along afterwards, you were like, oh, this is it. Like, you can never picture the next person you're going to meet at the time that you're going through like any sort of breakup, whether that's a friendship breakup or romantic breakup. But it's not to say it isn't coming. You just can't see it yet. So think back to all those times where, you found yourself in this new relationship or something that connected with you more, and you were like, wow, that's why that didn't work out. It's like to make room for this so that this could happen. Just hold on to that energy, remember that feeling, and know that that's coming to you. And the way that that will come to you is loving this new version of yourself, this evolved version of yourself. The card that's associated with this card, or with this crystal that we picked for you, is the Hierophant, which I think is literally the perfect card for this crystal, because the Hierophant, especially like you can see, there's kind of like, this person's got some like badass energy. They're being like, they know what they want. Hierophant has a lot to do with discernment, and discernment refers to kind of deciding for yourself, like, what is your truth? What is it that you need? What is it that you want? And standing in that energy. This person, like, even though there's two people below here, kind of like, in the foreground, this person's basically saying like, I respect you and do what you want, but like, I'm up here and I'm doing my thing. Like, I'm respecting this like new version of myself. I'm respecting my evolution. I'm respecting my place, and my place is to be here, and I will do what I need to do to take care of myself. And actually, with taking care of yourself, you actually become a better community member. You actually become a better friend. The more you take care of yourself, the more you offer yourself that love. One of my favorite Ram Dass quotes goes something like, the best thing you can do for me is take care of yourself, and the best thing I can do for you is take care of myself. Because when we take care of ourselves, we're not burnt out, we watch our boundaries, we do things that are really aligned with us, we feel better, and then we are better community members, we're better friends, we show up for others better when we take care of ourselves. So there's also like that idea of like people pleasing is just like, it doesn't exist here. It's like, it's about respecting other people, of course, but like living in that energy of like, I'm going to take care of myself. This is like my discernment. This is my truth. This is what I know I need to do. And even if other people have the best intentions for you, it's just kind of skewing you off your road a little bit. Like I have this feeling like, you know, whether that's family members or friends, are kind of like, they have your best intentions in mind, but like they don't know what you need. And I have this feeling like you need to step in this energy of like discernment. You know what you need, you know what you want, and you need to go and do it. And even if other people don't understand it, and hey, let's say, you know, it works out or it doesn't matter, because no matter what, if you know something isn't right for you, it's not going to vibe. Like, it's just not going to work. So you might as well try what you feel is going to work for you. And I guarantee more times than not, it will work out and you will never regret it. You will never regret going for what you know your truth is and what you know you need. And there's this like badass energy of like, I love myself enough to like, you know, appreciate like, you know, maybe the support or input that people give, but knowing what my truth is. So maybe even like a journal reflection of like, what is your truth? Like what is it that you need? What is it that you feel is important for you to step into this energy, step into this evolved sense of yourself? So I hope you enjoyed your reading. Once again, if you would like to donate towards your reading or even book a personal reading, you can head to link in my bio. I'll give you all the information on how to donate, all the information on how to donate, and also how to book a reading, or you can send me a message and I would love to book a reading with you. I'm really excited. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the next deck, which is deck number 2. Or card in crystal number 2, and we have the Angel Phantom Quartz here. I'm gonna try and get to focus. I refer to this stone as like my waterfall dreamy crystal stone. It kind of feels like, I'm gonna try and get it to like focus pretty well. I'm like, kind of feel like I'm doing a makeup tutorial. You can kind of see like this, like what looks like a waterfall in there. I really wish like I could give it to you to hold, but it just kind of feels like I'm holding like almost like another world in here where there's like a waterfall. It's very dreamy. It's just like, this is one of my all-time favorite stones. It just, yeah, all those keywords still stand. So this stone feels very, yeah, the keywords I associate it with is dreamy, waterfall, creativity, just like kind of being in like that angel energy too. So this is a very, very positive stone to be in. So this either means that you're in a phase right now where you're stepping into this like new, very high, like great potential, or it's coming to you soon and you've been like wondering how you're gonna do that, right? So like, it's either you're in it now or you're on that cusp. So to me, it kind of feels like this is a really important time to be diving into like the fun things in life, the things that make you feel like a kid again, the things that make you feel creative, the things that, you know, inspire you, bring you out in nature, the things that are going to make you feel dreamy, like you're living that dream life, right? And, you know, it's not all in what you, I think, expect it to be in. And I think that's an important message coming in here, is basically saying that, like, release what you think is going to be, you know, the ideal dream life. And especially what society tells us, where it's like, you know, you're going to be like happy, or things will be dreamy once, you know, you have this, or once you have this much money, or you know what I mean? It's like, where it's always like an end goal. This to me feels like, release the idea that your happiness or this dreamy life exists in this exterior, like out of you end goal, and start noticing it where you are. And like I said, it can be as simple as like that childlike wonder. Like, if you saw the world in the eyes of like the younger self of you, where things were innocent and everything was exciting, like what would you see? Would you see this like abundance that's all around you, the trees, being out in nature, the sky, looking at the clouds, listening to fun music, dancing around, playing games, hanging out with friends? Like, all these things are dreamy. It's like that, it reminds me like that quote being like, it's time to romanticize your life. Like, that's the energy I'm getting here, is almost like, I think, you know, there's this thing and it kind of seems like it's outside of you, and you feel like maybe you've always been chasing it and you've always been trying to like obtain that happiness or that dreamy life or whatever it is. but it exists now. And there's that resistance to it. I think that comes up when you're like, it doesn't exist now. It's literally about like changing the way you see the world. And obviously sounds easier said than done, and it is. However, it's about rewiring like how you're seeing things, right? So like, for example, if you always see abundance as being like this external goal, like once you have this job or once you make this much money, it will always be this fleeting thing. But if you start looking around you now and being like, for example, it could be as simple as like, I have this piece of artwork and it's beautiful, it's on my wall, and like I'm just like, you know, I bought that because I'm like connected to it, like, you know what I mean? Or like you go outside and you connect with the trees and you're like, wow, like look at the different leaf shapes, like each tree is different, each tree has different medicines, these plants have different medicines. Like there's all these like spiritual things and things guaranteeing abundance and this dreamy life all around you. But to me, it kind of feels like it's been this chasing game. And I think like right now is a phase where I think like you're capable of rewiring that, like that lack or like that chasing mentality, and making it more of something like, okay, you know, anytime I've chased something and I've gotten it, I've just gone and chased something else again. So it's time to stop being like, my happiness exists, for example, once I get this job, or once I, you know, create this book, or once I, you know, meet the love of my life, and start being like, well, what it is, like my younger self would be so proud of where I'm at now. Like, what do I have now in my life that is what I always wanted and what I wanted to create? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's such a shift in focus. And it's not to say that having goals isn't great. Goals and things like that are amazing to have, but basing your entire happiness on like, once you do that, is a completely different frequency and different state of being to be in, versus being in a state of noticing it all around you. And I will also give you a secret. Once you start noticing it all around you and listing it, you know, in your house, in your relationships, you know, in the outside world, it starts coming in more and more. And all the things you'd been chasing kind of start becoming easier, and you start becoming like that state of gratitude, that state of like living, let's say, like that's why I always say, you know, when you live in this like relationship with the earth, you become more abundant. You notice how much is all around you. Like, for example, it's like the mentality of like dandelions, right? Like a lot of people see it as a weed, but actually it has a lot of health benefits, right? So like just that shift alone is like the difference between what to you is like, you know, weed, and like to some people is gross, and you know, versus like medicine. Like you can literally make dandelion coffee, you can use the leaves in salads. Like it's such a beautiful plant, you know what I mean? It's just the shift in perspective. And then you start noticing it more and more around you. It's different states of being to be in. And it feels to me like evoking this dreamy state is as simple and as complex as rewiring your way of thinking in terms of like where you're seeing it in the present moment versus basing it in a future goal. And it feels really important to say, like, start diving into like that fun spiritual stuff maybe like that you've always wanted to learn. So like, you know, for example, if you were like kind of always interested in like crystals or like angels or dreams, but you kind of felt like, oh, this is something that's like not obtainable to me because like that doesn't exist, or like your thinking part of the brain is like, well, I don't know that. Like, have fun, be a kid. Like, there's nothing wrong with exploring things. And hey, if it doesn't exist, it's not like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not going to harm you. It's going to do more good than bad, than to believe in things that benefit you. Do you know what I mean? Like to believe, well, like rewiring that kind of like phrase, it's like, it does, as long as it makes you happy and it respects other people, what's the harm in learning about it and engaging in it? You know what I mean? I'm going to pause this for 2 seconds because my phone's going to die. I'm going to charge it while I talk. Okay, now the card we have pulled here is the Five of Pentacles, which I think is very fitting for the reading that we've done so far. So as we see here, there's 2 people. They're pretty cold. You can tell they're kind of like uncomfortable. And, you know, there's like almost that seems to be this kind of like glass, beautiful window that has like this sign for them. But because they're so cold and like they're focused on the cold, they're not looking at it, even though it's kind of like right in front of them. So to me, it's once again like that idea of almost like you're so focused on like a goal providing you happiness that your happiness actually doesn't reside in, even as much as you convince yourself it does, that you're actually missing out on like all these like, you know, things that will bring you happiness, or things you can notice that will instate that for you. And I think that's really funny because usually when I pull like a card in like with the crystal is like, it will usually expand on what I was saying with the crystal, but for this, it pretty much said the exact same thing. So like, to me, it feels almost like that energy of like, I'm not going to give you too much more details or things to work on, because this is like, it's better to focus on like this one thing to just spread yourself thin by trying to like fix or like work on a bunch of things at the same time. So once again, like if you're ever kind of feeling like, you know, you can't be happy in this moment, or like you're basing your happiness on like a future moment, to think of this card, think of this visualization of like when you're cold, you know, you can either like acknowledge it's cold, and yes, it can be uncomfortable, but like you can at least like take a look around you and like notice these beautiful things that exist, like even the snow, you know, these things that we just pass by when we're so focused on one thing, right? Like that's kind of the energy here. So I'm going to drive that home. I know this was a bit more of a brief reading, but once again, I feel like that importance of like really picturing this card when you're feeling that way, or picturing that imagery when you're feeling that way of like, I can't be happy now until I've achieved this, or once I have this. And knowing that there's that happiness you're chasing, it's all around you. You're just kind of like a horse with blinders, like your fixed perception is on that end goal. So you're missing out on kind of these things that exist all around you in this moment. Even if it's an uncomfortable moment, it's not to say that like, you know, being in this situation wouldn't be comfortable. It's not to say being in this situation would be comfortable, but it's about saying when you are uncomfortable, like start noticing things around you. That's actually a really helpful tip for trauma responses, is when you feel like you're not being present in the moment, or you're experiencing some sort of, you know, trigger or traumatic event, or just anything that's not making you feel present, or you're feeling like you're struggling to be grounded in the moment, just listing things that are around you. Let's say you're like, okay, I'm gonna list 5 things that are my favorite colors. So you're like, okay, I see this picture, I see the cards there, I see my calendar. You can do things like, you know, 5 things you hear. I hear my bunny hanging out, I hear my air conditioner on, stuff like this, you know, and it helps bring you back into the moment, noticing your awareness and your senses and what's going on all around you. So I hope you guys enjoyed your reading. Once again, if you guys want to donate, I really appreciate it. Or if you want to book a personal reading, I would love to connect with you. You can do so by either sending me a message or going to the link in my bio. You can check out all the things on my website, the services, and how to donate. And yeah, I would love to connect with you guys further. I hope this resonated with you and you guys enjoyed your reading. And next card in crystal I have here, I actually have cards, is the Black Moonstone. So if you picked this stone, the energy I'm picking up here, so moonstone has a lot to do with different kinds of keywords. So we have the moon, obviously, water, tides, femininity, because the moon represents the feminine side and the masculine side is the sun. So there's also that element of balance. There's so much that goes on with moonstone, especially Black Moonstone. To me, I think about new moons and setting intentions. So to me, it almost feels like that there's like an energy here that like you kind of need to update your intentions. I think, you know, maybe you're holding on to things that actually aren't bringing you happiness, or just like aren't serving you anymore. So now's the time to kind of treat it like with that new moon energy. Notice that maybe, you know, you've been feeling a bit more emotional, or going through emotional time. Maybe you've been feeling burnt out, or just like you don't have too much energy. And these are all signs that like you're maybe living an outdated version of yourself, or like, yeah, just kind of like you need these new intentions to make you excited again, like bring in that new and that fresh and exciting energy. So set these intentions. Don't just think of them in your mind. Like maybe just like give yourself an hour or half hour of sacred time, whether that's you're journaling in your room, you're outside and you're journaling in the bath. Just have like a physical notebook and just check in with your intentions. You can even break it out into different categories, being like, okay, relationships, friendships, work, personal time, habits, literally can be anything. And just setting like new jot note intentions in each area doesn't need to be full too much. Actually, the more you hone in on like just making it small and concise notes, I find is the more you'll give focus and intention to those areas that really, really need it. So checking in with your intentions at this time, and just like being gentle with yourself. If you've been feeling more emotional, just know that, you know, that is so valid, and being not trying to like skip past any emotions, just trying to, you know, even if it's uncomfortable, sit with it and validate your experience. And, you know, having these new intentions will give you something to be aiming towards, or like something that you can do now that will really help you feel a bit more energized and a bit more like you have this sense of like what it is that you are trying to create. There's this creation energy, especially surrounding the moon, very big creation energy. And to me, it actually feels like there's a lot of really good potential and there's a lot of like good energy there, but maybe you've been like a little bit hard on yourself, or you just been feeling low energy, so it's been hard to do stuff. But having these intentions in mind, you'll start noticing like these subtle changes. You're like, like, I've always I set the intention where I wanted to learn something new or finish a book a day, or I wanted to get up earlier, and you're just already noticing these subtle shifts because you kind of have like something that feels like it honors where you're at now versus an outdated version of yourself. An outdated version of yourself doesn't necessarily mean yourself from like a month ago or a year ago. An outdated version of yourself could be something you felt yesterday and you're ready to release, like something you're looking to move past, and what you're integrating more of is where intentions really help. So I actually pulled 2 cards here, which I thought was interesting, and I kept asking myself, I was like, is it just 1 or 2? And it felt very clear to say 2. So we have this 2 of Wands here, and as you can see, it's kind of like you have this like amazing view ahead of you, and you have these 2 wands like that represents the balance. Once again, I think that's really interesting because we talked about balance within this stone, and there's only 2, like 2 is like the balancing number. It's like 1 and 1, right? So I think this is interesting because there's this beautiful paradise and view ahead of you, and this person has their phone. So to me, it actually, I think, is literally talking about a phone in this case. Like maybe, you feel like you can't enjoy everything because maybe you're caught up in, a phone can represent anything. It can represent your actual phone where like, you're caught up in the online world. But I think in this case, it also can represent anything that like you're holding on to that's preventing you from seeing this beautiful view, or like moving forward or going and exploring things. So whether you're holding on to like, being online a lot, or like feeling a bit drained from that, or you're holding on to like old parts of yourself, like old friendships, whatever it is that just like doesn't feel like it's allowing you to go out and explore a whole ton, like just kind of, instead of bringing your phone with you, both literally and metaphorically, put your phone away, or just don't even bring it with you as you go on this exploration. This means metaphorically, and it can mean literally. So maybe you go to spend time with friends, or you're spending some time alone, setting some intentions, and just like putting your phone in another room, like distancing and setting a boundary from that part of yourself, saying like, there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and like bringing yourself into the world a bit more, versus like feeling like you're always carrying something with you, whether that's like carrying your phone or carrying the weight of like, some sort of thing in the past or something that's like not serving you anymore. I feel really called to say like, instead of carrying this thing with you, or carrying your phone, or carrying whatever it is that, is preventing you from like really being present with this whole view, don't have this looming thing with you. Just like acknowledge that you should set a boundary there and release it so that you can just go out and fully enjoy yourself. Maybe you have some guilt surrounding releasing this, or like leaving your phone, or whatever it is, but everyone is on their own journey. You need to take care of yourself. You need to allow yourself to enjoy life. If you focus on what's holding you back, or like what feels like a weight, that is all you will feel. So you need to do what you can to take care of yourself. You need to do what you can to set these boundaries so you can experience this view, versus feeling like you always have to be carrying this thing with you, if that makes sense. The other card I got, which this is funny because there's not too many cards in this that have phones in it, but I find when it does, it's like a very strong signal, and we've talked a bit about that already. Is we have this person with their phone here, and then there's a bunch of swords, and even though there's all these swords here, this person is still focused on their phone. So to me, this might be a sense of almost like you're disregarding your feelings, like you're not validating when you are feeling upset. It's important right now to be respecting your boundaries and respecting what you need in order to take care of yourself, and make sure that you don't feel as hurt, or you know what I mean? It's like almost like you're experiencing this pain, whether it's emotional or mental or spiritual, and you're not validating it. When if you stopped trying to put yourself down or engaging in this world that's not making you feel good, like that literal phone or the metaphorical phone, whatever it is that you're carrying with you, you'd be able to tend to these wounds and feel a lot better, and not feel like you're so stuck in this way, if that makes sense. So, even though these two are very different energies, there's really like dark and light, to me, it's offering a resolve. It's saying that, like, if you work on this, like, if you take care of yourself and if you validate your experiences and just, like, disconnect, you know, from whatever it is that's making you feel weighed down, whether that's your phone, the news, a certain friend, like a routine, whatever it is that's not working for you. Once you disconnect, that pain will be able to be dealt with better and it will eventually go away. And I think it's just you're avoiding it and you're not validating your own experiences, and you have to validate how you feel. And I think especially when something's not physical, sometimes we can, even if sometimes when it is physical, it's like sometimes we ignore it because we're like, oh, I'll be fine. But then if it's happening to another friend, we care so much. So you need to start treating yourself as if you're your own best friend. Take care of yourself and just, like, be aware of what it is that's weighing you down, like literally what's weighing you down. Because to me, it's like this phone represents all these swords. And once you kind of disconnect from that, all these swords will go away. And it sounds easier said than done, and I totally understand that. There's an accessibility to this. But it's time to take care of yourself. It's time, if you've been, you know, feeling like you've been experiencing mental health issues and you've thought about going to therapy, whatever it is, it's like, now is the time to do it. If you've been feeling like your spiritual routines have been in a rut, or like emotionally you haven't been feeling good, but you just keep like pushing past it, now's your time to deal with it. Now's your time to validate how you feel. Treat yourself like you would your best friend. If your best friend came to you and said, hey, you know, I'm experiencing, you know, this like difficulty in my like mental health, or like I'm feeling really emotional, if you know, if it's you, sometimes you can be mean to yourself and be like, oh, you know, like I'll get over it, it's fine. But if your friend came over to you and said that they were feeling this way, would you be like, yeah, you'll get over it, it's fine? Or would you be like, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, like, let me help you? You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're so hard on ourselves versus like how we are to our best friends and how we are to our friends and the people in our life. We need to start giving ourselves that care. We need to start validating ourselves. So when you catch yourself being mean to yourself or trying to tell yourself like, you know, this is fine, or I'll just get over it, or whatever it is, remind yourself to treat yourself like you are your own best friend. Ask yourself, what would my best friend say to me if I felt this way? Would they be bypassing it, or would they be giving me consoling advice or trying to help me through it, right? And sometimes this is also a signal to have a friend, have someone who takes you, or have something or routine or a person that takes you out of this feeling of like always being on your phone, whether that's literally or physically, or literally or metaphorically. Like, have that thing or that person that takes you out of feeling like you can't enjoy this view, you know what I mean? Or that things that like make you feel like you're being trapped down. There's ways to get out of it, but because you keep engaging with it, it's almost like maybe an addiction to that feeling, or like to that familiarity, or like thinking you're gonna get a different result, even though it keeps proving time and time again it's not making you feel good. Once you validate how you feel, this will go away and that phone will go away, and you'll just be exploring in here. You'll be exploring the view. You'll be experiencing new things that uplift you versus feeling like that energy. Does that kind of make sense? I hope so. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed your reading. If you would like to donate towards your reading to help me continue making readings accessible, you can do so through the link in my bio or on my website, or even through messaging me. If you'd like to book a personal reading, I would love to connect with you. I love doing readings for people. So if you're looking to find out a bit more, get a bit more of a personalized reading, you can just send me a message or book through my website. And it was so amazing doing this for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day or evening depending on when you're watching this. Bye.